you celebrate then? Like, not celebrate, I don't know, what should I say? Like, I need to understand. So your nation, or some of you maybe do celebrate, or some have, like, do you celebrate, or do you just go with the flow, or do you, like, I don't see protests as such either, like, right?
Well,
obviously.
there was the suppressed Thanksgiving address from my cousin Frank James, who started the National Day of Mourning and the protests of Thanksgiving in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that's happened annually since that beginning.
So where can I find this if I want to put the link on my website about when I'm talking to you? Like, is there a link, or did they film it, or is there, and like, how can people learn about this? Or is there writing about it?
Yes, I mean, I think it ends up being in the news sometimes.
Okay.
Obviously, if you Google National Day of Mourning,
National Day of Mourning,
you'll find some information on it. There's Roland James.
Roland. Okay,
Roland James.
Roland, Roland James. Okay.
That's Frank James's son, and is I think one of the main organizers of the National Day of Mourning, and keeping that sort of tradition alive. I've attended numerous protests, as hasn't pretty much most of the Wampanoag people who are involved in the nation and in our communities today. I think most folks have attended or participated or spoken at that event over the years.
So basically, so you don't celebrate, basically. So you're just taking off because you have to take off.
Yeah, I think ultimately everyone is going to give you a slightly different answer to it. Some folks, I don't think any Native folks that I know celebrate Thanksgiving like the typical American does, because inherently it just doesn't have the same warm, fuzzy feeling. We're constantly reminded when we look around about all the lands that were forcibly removed from our society. Yeah. We look around at how well everyone has done off of indigenous knowledge, whether you're talking about the pharmaceutical companies or you're talking about the logging companies or the mineral harvesting companies, or you're talking about, the massive land grabs that turned certain farming families into these, huge landholders where, a single English family took the entire land holdings of a whole Wampanoag community. So obviously
they don't refer to that.
Well, no. Why would they? Yeah. I mean, they did phenomenally well, and some of those same families today have some of that land and have the money that they have, managed to leverage out of all the resources on that land and the sale of some of that land. And not any of it goes back to supporting an entire nation of people that were dependent on it. So, when you look at a Wampanoag family that's struggling in an apartment building, trying to make ends meet, meanwhile, someone is phenomenally wealthy off of the land that should be in their family's holdings. And it's a constant reminder of how the balance has shifted and how, a society that was generous and allowed a small group of people to live and enjoy military protection and knowledge and medicines and friendship and support, how in just several generations they took the upper hand and they were not reciprocal with that relationship, and they were not balanced and kind people like the folks that greeted them and allowed them to continue to live on property that wasn't theirs and allowed them to eat or actually gave them food to eat and provided them with resources that they themselves didn't know how to come across or maintain. I don't think anyone could look at that history, removing their bias or their personal opinion about race and supremacy. If you just look at individual people as just equal humans, you could not look at that story and say that this was a kind and giving relationship where at the end you could feel good about the outcome. There's no one in their right mind who could say that that was the case. There are several million Mayflower descendants today, and there are less than 6,000 known Wampanoag people today. I don't know how that works without genocide and imbalance and devious action and horrific war.
So what do you...
Go ahead. I think there's a lot of reasons like that Wampanoag people can't really look at this holiday as something positive and meaningful when we can't expect to look around our own communities and look around the areas of our nation today and see anything that acknowledges our people and our continuance. There's very little here that feels like home in our only home on this earth. And that in and of itself would make celebrating Thanksgiving hard to swallow.
Do you have some resources that you can share with us, with me, that people can learn from, that are written by the natives, or you have put down some stories just the way you talked to me today?
There are some folks who are doing a bit of writing now. I think establishing a relationship and having conversations with Indigenous people from various regions helps to not only teach you about maybe moments in history that have a different perspective that have been removed from the telling of that story, but also the layers of humanity that you get from having a personal connection and interaction with people, not just facts and information, but an understanding of people's sense of humor, their gestures, their movements, the sounds and the expressions that are linked to a very specific people and culture and history and how the people actually view things. Because it's not just understanding that, yes, people had this experience and they exist here and this is what they typically do now. But that sort of textbook understanding of people, but the actual connection that establishes a reason for people to honor and respect another type of nation and community and language and right, the reason that we should be getting together and talking about things and sharing and establishing relationships, right? Because that's what changes how societies view the future.
That's
I guess
true.
ultimately it's, if you don't know a people, it's very easy to dismiss the need to allow them to still exist in this world.
I agreed.
Right?
Sorry, go ahead. You were saying something?
Oh, I was just going to say it's very easy in this society. unfortunately, it's easy to disregard whole groups of people, even though communication is so easily attainable now. It's so easy to disregard if you just have controls in place that keep certain people and perspectives out of the media, for instance. Point to any news anchors on any national news channels that have an indigenous anchor and deal with indigenous issues. Not one. I can't think of anyone. Where are the heroes, for our people? Where the young Native children, where can they look to see people who are acknowledged globally or nationally that they want to try to achieve and surpass their achievements? It's hard. I mean, we all are forced to forge our own way and find heroes or find a path that would allow us to maybe have a chance to become some of those people. And yet, in my whole life, I have yet to see someone make it to that level. And that says a lot about the society we live in. We're still fighting for the right to not be demonized by sporting teams and horrific caricatures of a generalized Native person making a fool of themselves as a mascot for the entertainment of the masses. And we can't say that offends us and expect anything to be done about it. We can't expect in this modern society that our women and children that they will be protected and safe, as Native women are 5 times more likely to be brutalized than any other people in this country. It's hard to really get behind a Thanksgiving holiday or Native American Heritage Month, which is November, and still and just feel good about that when you can't feel good about being who you are and feel protected as a citizen of the United States and feel good about what the state of affairs are for Indigenous people in this continent. It's hard. It's hard for us, I think. As Indigenous people, however, we do have our celebrations and our feasts and our gatherings, and those are far more frequent than
just once a year.
Once a year. We have our Thanksgivings and our celebration and feast times, which go off of the lunar cycle, so 12 to 13 of those gatherings per year.